When I was, say, about 18, in my last year of high school, well, there was a band that I auditioned for. It was the Newport Youth Band, led by Marshall Brown, who was a high school teacher from Farmingdale, and he had a high school band that played at the Newport Festival the previous year. I think it was in 1958. And so in this Newport Youth Band, there was the drummer turned out to be Larry Rosen. Um, Eddie Gomez was the second string bass player. He wasn't. He was only 13 back then. And Herb Mickman was the lead bass player. Yeah, we had a lot of people in that band. Micah Benny on piano. So during that period, I was like, what, 18, 19. I used to, you see, because the guy that led the Newport Youth Band, he didn't have a baritone player, and back then I was a tenor player. So he asked me if I would consider playing baritone, and well, I said, well, I don't have a baritone. He said, well, kid, if I buy you one, will you play it? I said, well, I guess, yeah. So he told me to go down to 48th Street, and pick up a baritone that he paid for, brand new Selmer, new line. And so I started shedding on the baritone. So the first rehearsal of the Newport Youth Band, Herb Mickman, he was the oldest guy in the band. He was, I think, already 20. He was too old to be in the band. So he said to me, man, you got to get us a better sound. Like, start listening to Pepper Adams, man. And I said, okay, geez, how do I get a sound like Pepper Adams? So I went to the music store Monday. Following Saturday, the next rehearsal, I bought a new mouthpiece that was the widest tip metal mouthpiece that I could find, thinking that that would give me the biggest sound. So I played for Herbie, the bass player, and he said, no, man, it's not there yet. So one of those Saturdays, Jimmy Owens, 13 years old, he said, hey, Ronnie, you want to go up to Smalls, man? Donald Byrd and Pepper are playing there. He was studying with Donald Byrd. I said, oh, yeah, great, I'd love to go. So we went up there, and we sat at the table, and they came off the bandstand after the first set, and here I am sitting next to Pepper. So I had to ask him, like, well, what is that mouthpiece you're playing? He said, I don't know, it's something that I just sent to Berg Larson. They sent me the mouthpiece. I didn't even care what it was. I just started playing it, and it was the opposite of what I thought was like, a large tip opening, but it was a small tip, and he said he used a very hard reed to get the sound that he got back, when he was with Donald Byrd and all those Blue Note records. So, I was trying to emulate Pepper, but my tenor playing kept flowing over into my baritone playing because I was into Dexter Gordon, Gene Ammons, Hank Mobley, Sonny Rollins, Coltrane, so then, okay, but there was a place called the Cafe Y I told you about. I'm 18 or 19, so I come home from high school, drop my books, grab my baritone, which is the horn that Marshall Brown bought for me. I would go into the Village from Brooklyn and sit in, it was open jam session from 4 to 7 weeknights. And in that surrounding, a lot of well-established musicians like Mingus, Coltrane would come in and check out the whole scene. One time, I was on the bandstand. Morris, do you remember Morris Edwards, the bass player? So Morris would head up the sessions, and I was on the bandstand, and I looked over to my left, and I see Coltrane whispering. He leaned into Morris, and Morris looked at me and said to Coltrane, "Oh, that's Ronnie Cuber." Apparently, Train was asking about me. So now when I tell all my friends, yeah, Train was asking about me, man, and they start laughing because they think I'm joking, But yeah, I mean, people like Mingus would come in, and one time I was like, because I was copying Bird, man, up and down, sideways, and I was in the middle of my chorus on All the Things You Are, and Mingus yelled out from across the room. He said, "You sound like Bird." Scared the shit out of me. So afterwards, I got on the subway, I went home, and I'm thinking, gee, if Mingus said I sound like Bird, that couldn't be so bad. Well, I was mixing in all my Sonny Rollins, Hank Mobley, Dexter riffs into my own bag of tricks.